Hey, Chef Ro here. Today I'm going to teach you to make a dish called Lugaw. Now we're continuing on in Filipino Heritage Month, and this is a chicken and rice dish that is going to be very similar in texture to a congee. Okay? My cousin who suggested that I do this dish, she likes to call this Filipino sick food because she always craves it when she's not feeling well. And there are some reasons behind it that I'll talk about in just a minute. That inherently the ingredients in here you do crave when you're not feeling well because they are meant to help heal you from the inside. Much like chicken noodle soup in American culture, when you're sick you eat that. Okay? So these are the ingredients that you're going to need to feed a family of 4. Once you've got your ingredients ready, let me show you what we're going to do. Now, the recipe calls for a little bit of vegetable oil, and that's fine. You're welcome to use that. For me, when I buy my chicken thighs, I usually buy them bone in, skin on. Okay, so I have the skin here, so I'm going to use the skin of the chicken to create the fat that everything else is going to cook in, and it's going to just give it a more chickeny flavor rather than a neutral flavored oil. But a neutral flavored oil would also work quite well. Here I have my chicken thighs, and I'm just going to season them lightly with salt and pepper. Okay. Now I've got my pan preheated just a bit. Now I'm using a Dutch oven here, but if you have another pot, that also works. You're going to need a fairly large pot for this because it makes quite a bit. So I'm just going to put it skin side down, and I'm going to let that fat do something called rendering out, okay, where the fat comes out. And I'm going to season the other side of the chicken thighs while they're facing me. If you're not feeling well, using a bone-in thigh works even better. The theory is, and why chicken noodle soup works also, is anything that has chicken broth or chicken stock involved, the stock was made from bones. The bones have marrow. The marrow is where the immune system lives. So the theory behind eating chicken soup when you are not feeling well is that you're eating the chicken's immune system, and by eating that immune system it'll bolster your immune system and you'll get better faster. At least that's the theory behind it. So I'm going to let this continue to render out. When it renders out, I'm going to take the skin off and sear both sides. But I'm going to show you how to do that as soon as it is ready. Okay, you can see that in the bottom of my pan, I have some nice flavorful fat. Remember, I didn't have any fat before, and now look how shiny and nice that is. That's all chickeny fat. Okay, so now I'm going to flip the chicken over, brown it on this side, and just peel that skin right off. Now, if you have to get your fingers involved, be careful because it's hot. And also remember that this is technically still raw chicken, so you'll definitely need to wash your hands after. And if you want to get a little more fat out, you can throw it down on that side, and then it'll become crispy and lovely, and it'll be like a potato chip, only way tastier. Okay? So we're just going to brown this. Now, we're not trying to cook it all the way through. We're just trying to build flavor. Once it's browned, I'll show you what we do next. Okay, you can see I've got a nice brown color here on my chicken thighs. That's what we're looking for. We were not looking to cook these all the way through. All we're doing is building layers of flavor here. So we're creating something called fond at the bottom of the pan. It's all the brown crispy bits that we all love so much, right? It's where all the flavor is. So all I've done is browned my chicken. So I'm going to take my chicken out. Yes, I know it's not cooked. Don't worry. It's going to cook more later. Okay? Both sides are now brown. And these tongs, they go away. These do not get used anymore. These have touched raw chicken. We are not going to cross-contaminate in this kitchen. The next thing that we're going to do is add our scallion whites and our diced onion. Now, much like the pancit, this calls for 2 different kinds of onions. And if you want to put just a little pinch of salt in there, that's going to help draw the water out, and it's going to help us kind of deglaze this pan as we go. Okay, now you're going to stir it up a little bit and then let it sit, because stirring is not cooking, and you'll release the heat into the air instead of letting it stay in the pan to do its job. So, let it sit for just a minute, give it a stir, let it sit, give it a stir, until these onions are translucent, which means see-through. I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Okay, you can see that my onions have softened and gotten a little bit see-through, and notice that when I stir, I'm scraping the bottom of the pan, trying to get all those lovely brown bits up and onto my onions. Okay, so now we're going to add our ginger and our garlic. Okay, and we're going to cook this just until we kind of start to smell it. Just barely smell it is all you're going to need, because we're going to keep cooking it before liquid here in a second. Okay, next we're going to add the rice as soon as you smell that. Okay, so we're going to use our rice here, and we're going to give this a little bit of a toast. Okay, now that ginger in the recipe is the next reason that this is considered sick food. Ginger has long been used as for its medicinal properties, especially to calm your stomach. That's why so many people on an airplane order ginger ale. It helps calm their stomach while they're flying. Okay, you can see that my rice is toasted just a little bit, and you can always tell that because you can smell it also. Now, we're going to take, I've got my chicken stock and my water together, okay? And you want to take just a little bit at first, because I want you to scrape, 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 scrape that bottom. I want all of the goodness in the dish, not on the dish, okay? Once we've got that bottom scraped nice and well, we're just going to add the rest of this. Now this is going to seem like a lot of liquid, I know. Just bear with me here. Okay, so you're going to give that a nice stir. We're also going to just put a small pinch of salt in here. Okay, and then we're going to let it come to a boil. Okay, once it comes to a boil, then we'll turn it down to a simmer, put the lid on, and I'll show you what we do from there. Okay. You can see that I have actually come down up to a boil, and I've turned it back down to a simmer, so you just want to see small bubbles going on in here. So you're going to add about half the lemon juice that you're going to use. Okay, make sure the seeds don't go in. Give it a little bit of a stir, and then we're going to put that lid on. If you're familiar with making rice, you know that the cardinal rule is once that lid goes on, no touching, no peeking, no stirring, no nothing until it's done. Well, this is kind of an exception. So I've turned it all the way down so that it's just remaining at a simmer. We're going to cook it for 45 minutes, but we need to stir it about every 15, okay? Just give it a nice hefty stir to make sure, number one, it's not sticking to the bottom of the pot, and number two, to check on the liquid situation. Sometimes, depending on the rice, it can absorb the liquid a little too quickly. If it starts to absorb it a little too quickly, that's why I always have this thing of water right here, just kind of sitting here waiting, just in case I need to add a little more water. You always want to make sure all of the rice is completely covered at all times. Okay, so in 45 minutes I'll come back and I will show you what it looks like then, and we'll show you what you do next. It's been 45 minutes and I've stirred it every 15 minutes. Today I've been lucky enough that the rice didn't absorb too much liquid, so I haven't had to add any extra. But now when I add the chicken and I'm going to cook it for another 30 minutes, now I am going to need to add a little bit extra liquid. So let me show you what I have going on in here. You can see in my pot that I've got my rice, okay, and it's been 45 minutes, so the rice is cooked. But now we need to cook the chicken because we want to get that congee type texture in here. And so for an appropriate lugaw texture, it needs to just keep cooking. And now I need to make sure that my chicken is cooked all the way through. Okay, so I'm going to put my chicken in here and any juices that have accumulated. Okay, and we're going to give that a nice hefty stir. Okay, now you can see here that I have rice that doesn't have liquid covering it. And if I leave it like this, it's going to dry out rather than continue to have the texture that I want. So I'm just going to add just a touch more water, just so that it doesn't dry out too much. I'm going to put my lid back on it. And now we're going to simmer it for another 30 minutes. And you're going to stir it halfway in the middle of that. Once that's done, I'm going to come back and show you how to finish off your lugaw. It's been 30 minutes. My chicken is fully cooked now. Everything is done except for the last finishing touches. Okay, you can see how beautiful this looks. The last thing that we just need to do here is add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and the last bit of the lemon juice. Okay, we're going to get that all stirred up. Now when you're seasoning food, always make sure you only add a little bit because you can always add more. It's really hard to take salt away. Now, if you want to shred the chicken and mix it all in, that's beautiful. Or if you want to leave it whole, that's fine too. You're just going to take a little bit of your lugaw, put it in here like this. Okay. Then you can just put that chicken thigh right on top if you'd like. Now, if you'd like white meat better than dark meat, you can always use that as well. Dark meat's just going to have more flavor. As usual, we've kept all of the tops of the green onions separate, so we can just sprinkle a little bit of that on top. And now here you have lugaw. Now you know how to make lugaw. Which one of the 3 dishes that we've made has been your favorite? Be sure that if you make one of these at home that you send us the pictures.